listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 185. I am your host, the executive editor of AwardsWatch.com, Brian McQuade. Joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello.
If you can't see his background, but he's in Barbie land right now.
That's where I live now.
It's where he's a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. We're also joined by Nicole Ackman.
Hello.
She's back, everyone. She's been gone for a month. She's been all around the world and then some.
Gallivanting, as they say.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
Nicole, you might have to tell us a little bit about that here in a minute. And Josh Parham.
Hello.
So nice to always have Josh on the show. It's just a ray
thank
of
you.
sunshine in my life. Speaking of a ray of sunshine, let's talk about, before we talk about today's main show, which is we're going to talk about Across the Spider-Verse, give our thoughts about that. We're going to do our top 5 non-Pixar, non-Disney animated films, which will be great. We got to give you guys a little bit of updates. Since the last time Nicole was here, there's been some movies that have come out in the theaters. And then that means, of course, there's movies in the theaters. The summer movie draft. We get a recap right now.
There's money being made.
There's money being made, and there's critics making, Rotten Tomato scores out there. Then, of course, it comes down to us talking about these drafts. And so Erik and his team had a great idea, and I've been updating the lists every week of all the numbers for the movies right now. And it's been actually a really interesting box office with just 4 films after the first month, because I mean, Guardians kind of started off slow, but then it's now hit close to over $700 million worldwide. Or almost $800 million worldwide.
Yeah, I think it's nearly at 8 at this point.
Yeah, it's nearly 8. It's about to probably be 9 by next. It might be 9 by next week if it keeps doing relatively well. Fast X came out, showed that it's more of an international box office play than it is a domestic box office play. Little Mermaid kind of has gone back and forth. It's kind of come out of, it's sink or swim a little bit at times. It feels like it's not nearly the success that I think some of the other ones have been, but it's still on a trajectory of it probably could make at least 500 to 600 as opposed to like $1 billion that like Aladdin did or something like that, or the $1 billion that didn't the Lion King make $1 billion?
I think so.
Oh yeah,
The Lion King made
1.9
stupid money.
That
was massive.
And then there's the movie we're going to talk about today, which is I mean, I don't want to say I called this, but I called this. I did. Josh knows I called this. Everyone was telling me on the show it's kind of like an internet thing, Dan Bayer. And Spider-Man did a 3-time multiplier this weekend from its original opening weekend of the first film. It made $120 million in the US. It made 88 worldwide. This movie is sitting at over $200 million in the first week, and with great reviews and great word of mouth, could easily do really well again next weekend too. I know that my theaters were packed. I don't know how you guys were, but Erik, thoughts on the summer movie draft so far? These numbers?
I immediately regret having the numbers right in front of me and updated all the time.
Yeah, because there's nothing I love more than a spreadsheet.
I do love a good spreadsheet, and these are numbers. So
and numbers don't lie.
And the numbers don't lie.
Tell the truth. There they are.
No, I mean, this is the breakdown's really fun, and we look at this breakdown already anyway, and look at something that is a U.S. domestic hit versus non-hit, and then how internationally things can just absolutely be so massive. And just looking at each of ours, I think Little Mermaid started with like 68 million internationally, really bad.
Yeah, and review bombed.
And Spider-Verse 88, not great, but obviously better.
Yeah.
And I think it does remain to be seen where that's gonna really show internationally. Each of those, honestly.
Nicole, you've kind of been outside of all this, outside the country, and I don't know if you caught a lot of movies while you were outside of the country, to be honest with you, because you were where were you? Where did you go again?
Okay, so I was in London, and then I was in Vienna, and then I was in Amsterdam for literally 30 hours. And then I was back in London and then out in the Cotswolds and like the English countryside, just like northwest of London. I saw one movie in a theater the whole time I was gone. It was that, and I literally just blanked on the name of it. It's that Sam Heughan, Priyanka Chopra, Jonas rom-com.
Oh,
it was
of
fine.
course.
Oh,
Sorry,
the one with
Celine
Celine
Dion.
Dion.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
That is, I guess, how I should have described it. Yeah, but
All right, that makes sense.
yeah, well, my friend was like, we should go watch something that was in the theater. I was like, all right, whatever. I did watch Queen Charlotte on Netflix, so I am up on my television a little bit more. But I saw a lot of theater. I saw Brokeback Mountain in London with Mike and Lucas, and it was phenomenal. But I was not seeing much film, but I did in the past week manage to make it to the theater to see both The Little Mermaid and as I called it to Ryan on the phone yesterday, Spider-Verse 2.
I mean, it really should. I mean, everyone's getting confused. It's almost like I was telling Nicole, like it's the Planet of the Apes thing where like you mix up the beginning of the title and you're like, yeah, it's Rise. I mean, Dawn. Everything. So.
Or the previous Spider-Man movies, honestly. The home
True.
naming convention also got confusing.
Oh, that was bad. Yeah.
Every time I have to think deeply about the plot to be able to figure out which one it is.
I'm gonna call it Spider-Verse: The Two Towers.
They're taking the Spider-Man to Isengard.
Spider-Verse: Attack of the Clones? Question mark.
That's
like
actually amazing and perfect because yes.
Yeah, right.
That's what it is.
So
that's what I'll be calling it now.
So Josh, for you, we have relatively 638 million so far in the whole box office and the points and everything, and they have Erik's team 339 million. This is not rounding up, it's more like rounding down, but essentially 340 million for Erik and 639 million for us. So how you feeling, Josh? Feeling good?
I mean, you would definitely want to be in this position instead of the other. I'm not gonna lie, but we still got a lot of summer to go.
There's a lot of movies still coming out.
The more we find out about Oppenheimer, the more I get nervous about it.
I'm getting nervous.
I mean, well, I get excited because I want to see it, but man, just the commercial play of this movie, I don't know. But
then I also think about the fact that I kept bringing up these IMAX screenings as like a big deal when we were drafting, and now it's literally the number one story on like every trade, talking about how pissed off Tom Cruise is about not having those damn IMAX screens. So, and again, kind of called it. You know what I mean?
It's a good point. So I am very curious to see where the rest of the summer is going to go. But yeah, especially when we saw those numbers for Spider-Man, I was feeling rather happy.
Yeah, and then there's the kind of middling reviews out of Cannes for Indiana Jones. Transformers is next week, but it seems to be kind of like
the forecast for Transformers is so dismal. I want to just die.
Yeah, it's bleak.
It's bad.
I mean, I know Nicole saw the preview for.
It's not Elemental bad, but it's bad.
Thank God nobody picked that.
Yikes.
I mean, the Flash is coming out soon, and nobody picked that. Kind of good for all of us there.
Forecast for that's really middling too. It's hard to know because
it really is. I tell you this is that Nicole saw a preview for a movie that I saw a preview for, and it was our bomb pick. And I'm like, well, this movie's making $900 million. Gran Turismo looks great. So, let's go.
I literally was like, do I just love David Harbour that much, or does this look good?
It looks so stupid. It looks so stupid, but I can feel like It could break even.
so stupid. It's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that I want to like go to the movie theater and like get ice cream like for while I watch. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if any of your movie theaters do like the dibs tubs of ice cream.
yep.
Like I will be at the theater with like an icy and that and
No word
cooling
on Haunted Mansion right now. Just nobody's even talking about that. Y'all's bombed.
I saw the trailer for the first time.
It's bad. doesn't
That movie's going to make $800 million.
it? Uh-huh.
That
It's Jamie Lee Curtis basically like forcing you to go to the theater.
She will
You
be.
know.
it
The
is a
power of
film.
Michelle Yeoh. You know.
There better be an Activia tie-in.
But no, I mean, like, yeah, there's still, I mean, obviously there's the big weekend of Barbie and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer announced that it's gonna be rated R, which I was completely shocked. I mean, no,
And
I
Barbie
was...
released their pre-orders for
Did
their
they?
Barbies.
Oh, for
I
the
pre-ordered,
the Barbies. Oh, for the
I
toys.
pre-ordered one of the Barbies.
Yeah, the pre-marketing for Barbie. Oh my God.
They're
Yeah,
killing it.
they're doing a
and
great
it's-
job. Good job,
and it's
Warner
really
Brothers.
good.
Yep.
I'm not
Um,
that like, oh my God, about Oppenheimer being R, but
From
the
from our
reasons
side, we
for
are.
it are quite interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the reasons for it that I'm like,
Not what I was
Is
expecting.
Killian about to drop a bomb? That we don't
what
know?
exactly is he doing with that bomb?
I'm just imagining like
I'm okay with it, whatever it is.
a Munich moment where the most horrible scene in the movie is going to be intercut with like him banging his bony body against poor Emily Blunt.
Probably more like Florence Pugh since it's his mistress and the
Whatever.
yeah.
You make a point.
But to be
It's a climax joke, Ryan.
Yeah.
Fixate on
Yeah.
the most important thing.
Focus.
Focus. All I know is that if it is him or Josh Hartnett or half the guys in that movie, honestly, I'd be okay with it. You know,
Any of them.
any of
honestly.
them. Yeah, just not Rami or Matt Damon. Good lord. If it
No,
was
Matt
Matt Damon, that would be like the worst movie of the year.
Hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass.
Actually, soft pass.
Soft pass. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
But I think there's a lot of stuff to be very, I don't think Eric, your team is out of it by a long shot because I do think Barbie's tracking really well.
I feel like Barbie will do well, but I'm at this point, I'm putting everything on Mission Impossible being just as close to Top Gun level and previous Mission Impossible
Yeah, I
as
hope.
possible.
Tom Cruise is going to get all other movies out of theaters.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to call bomb threats.
Would work for Oppenheimer.
He's just going to ride motorcycles through the screenings of the other one and bring people to Mission Impossible.
To be fair, every day that we've done this draft, the further and further we've gotten away from it, I am so glad that I picked the Meg 2 because that movie is going to do so much freaking money.
I do have a good feeling about the
That trailer, everybody just literally ate it up.
It's a great trailer. It's
Great
like, oh my
poster.
God, it's Jurassic Park and Jaws. What?
Yeah. It's Jason Statham literally kicking a Meg in the face. What? Sign me up. That's better than anything in Fast X. So that's where we stand. We're 300 million up on Eric and his team. Sorry, guys. It's still a long summer though. We're only in
fighting.
June. Yeah, there's still plenty of time. Plenty of time. But those IMAX screens, I'm telling you, Tom Cruise, very, very angry about it. Those little shoes just running around trying to get those screens. So what? He runs in all those movies. What do you want me to say?
I think it was the little shoes.
Like little shoes, like
It's
little
like little shoes.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
Ryan talking about Tom Cruise truly is giving like the British talking about Napoleon.
Listen,
Like,
listen.
little man.
Like, he's a tiny man. I like those movies. I cannot wait to see it. But I also know him going around town supposedly having tantrums about the fact that, like, dude, how did you not know that Christopher Nolan, who is notorious for getting these 3-week runs of IMAX screenings, was going to have this? This is known. The guy literally just said it's like one of the first IMAX movies ever to have black and white sequences shot in IMAX.
Look, Tom Cruise said, do you want to anger Christopher Nolan or do you want to anger the Church of Scientology? And I know which one of those I'm willing to get on the bad side of.
Yeah. Where's Shelley? That's all we want to know.
Yeah.
All will be revealed Literally in Mission Impossible, I think what the tagline is, all will be revealed. That's the
cliffhanger, right?
That's the twist, right? Shelley's the real villain in Mission Impossible or something like that. That'd be great. Anyway, speaking of plot twists and part ones,
30 minutes later,
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, movie that came out this past weekend. We were all privileged to see this, I believe, ahead of time, or
I wasn't, but I wasn't in the country.
Eric, did you see it
fair.
with
the normies?
Combination of press and normies.
There you go. Okay. Let's go to Eric then first. Eric, movie made a ton of money this weekend, also being claimed as one of the best films of the year so far. It's got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with 87 on Metacritic too, which is great for it. A lot of people really liking this movie. It is now supposedly, from what I read, the highest rated film on Letterboxd too, surpassing, I believe, Parasite.
That's such stupid shit.
It's crazy. That's kind of like Shawshank being number one on IMDb.
The movie's been out for 3 days. That is dumb.
Insane. Yeah, very dumb. But anyway, besides that, that's not the film's fault. That's people. What did you think of the first one, Eric? Into the Spider-Verse a couple years ago. Okay, well, you don't have to cut me off. I'm setting you up. What did you think of the first one?
I gave that 5 stars on Letterboxd. I gave this one too, so I'm part of the problem.
You're part of the problem. Look at you. And what did you think of this
one?
What did you think of this one?
I loved it. I thought it was. I was constantly mouth open, stunned. I loved
your mouth was open,
long Gwen Stacy intro opening. I thought that was really cool. Although I do have to echo some of the complaints about the sound, because her dialogue and most of the dialogue in that opening part was really low. It got better, but it was really low.
We get on Nolan. Jeez.
It was just insane because every action set and piece and sequence was so big, it felt like it was the end. You could have ended it with any of them. Even the main beginning one in the Guggenheim was so long and wonderful and fantastic and exciting. It could have been a final sequence. It was fantastic. But no, I loved it. The existing voice cast is wonderful. The additions were amazing. I really don't like when animated films make very hot characters like Oscar Isaac in this. Don't like really feeling
just in this
for an animated character.
Just in this, he's hot in everything.
Listen, those scenes with like the Oscar Isaac character and the Jake Johnson character, I was losing my damn mind. And there were children in my screening.
Ray was there too. I was feeling everybody. This is a very hot cast.
Very hot cast. Embarrassingly hot cast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I thought I had forgotten that it was a mid.
Oh, there was a part
trilogy. And I thought the end and the way it ended was absolutely phenomenal. It was an A+ cliffhanger to be continued. A+.
Wow, Eric giving it an A+. All right. Well, Nicole, you've been back in the States for like a week, and this is like your second movie that you've seen. So
yeah,
did it live up to your expectations and hype from the first one?
Yeah, I really love the first one. I think that the first one honestly sort of just like blew my mind in terms of what animated film can be. And obviously animation is a genre that sort of gets relegated to the side a lot. And I feel like now more and more we're starting to really see a push from people within the industry to not think about it that way. And from critics as well. And I think that both of the Spider-Verse movies really show like what you can do if you're being really innovative about how you're using animation and like the mix of styles. I mean, obviously, like in that opening Guggenheim scene, which first of all, that was enough like bait for me. But then you add that animation style with like the Da Vinci style drawing character. And I was, from that moment, I was already like sold. Like Sold, I'm here. And I think that this movie is as visually stunning as the first one is. I think that by nature of being the middle film of a trilogy, it doesn't have the same like narrative push, I guess, that like the first one did. And it doesn't have quite as much as the wow factor, like narratively, as the first one did. That said, I still think it's really great. I loved the opening Gwen Stacy bit. I thought that was cool. I really like how a lot of the characters in this, in particular, like Oscar Isaac's character, are allowed to be sort of morally gray. Because I feel like we don't see that in a lot of animation typically because it is marketed as like children's movies. We get these characters who are sort of more black or white in terms of their morality, and you know, this is the bad guy and this is the good guy, and you can maybe a character can switch from one to the other, but you know, I felt like myself actually grappling with this whole dilemma of sort of what we see Miles faced with in terms of the morality of some of this, like, you know, all the multiverse stuff and the canon events and that sort of thing. Again, I think that this continues to show itself as being like the best usage of the multiverse. I still think this is even a better usage than Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think that this voice cast is doing like stunning work. Like, not only is the film like visually stunning, but the voice cast are each bringing so much to their roles. And it made me, honestly, it was one of those things where I walked out and I was like, damn, I can't believe I have to wait for the third one. But I'm definitely going to go back and see it again because it is also the kind of movie that is kind of overwhelming when you're watching it for the first time, I think. And that's not like a criticism of it. It's just because there's so much happening. So I definitely feel like on a second watch, there's going to be like even more to discover and unpack. And I love films like that where you can keep watching it and keep getting more out of it.
Absolutely. They are throwing everything at the screen in this movie. Even, you know, even though in the first movie it kind of felt like that too, you know what I mean? But rewatching that recently, it's actually a little bit more tame than this experience because this is a lot to throw at you. Plus, it's a lot of setup for then what will essentially be a film next year, which will be a conclusion of everything that we've seen in two films. But before I continue, I got to get over to Josh because Josh is the biggest superhero film fan I know. I mean,
oh yeah,
Josh,
my favorite genre.
Is his favorite genre, bar none. Every year when I look at Josh Parham's top 10, I'm like, Josh Parham, wow, it's 10 superhero movies, and some of them didn't even come out. There's just the trailers for the ones for the next year. So Josh, being our resident comic book superhero movie guy around here, I gotta ask what you thought of Cross the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, despite that intro, yeah, not the biggest comic book fan.
What?
But yeah, I know, shocking. But
I get my facts right.
I did like Into the Spider-Verse very much, though. I thought that was really, really well done, and I still consider that to be the best Spider-Man movie, like by a very, very wide margin.
Even more than the Raimi films.
Yes.
Okay.
And I like the Raimi films, but I think Into the Spider-Verse is just doing something on a whole new level.
That's fair.
This one, I have to admit, I'm not quite as high on it as other people are. It's a good movie. I did really like it. I thought it was very entertaining. But there is a lot going on in it. I have to agree to that. And for me, I think it does get to a point where it did feel a bit overstuffed. It felt like it was trying to introduce a lot of character arcs that, because it's also a part one, it can't really complete. I understand that's not its objective, but from just a narrative perspective, that's always been a bit frustrating with me with part ones, and it just feels a bit incomplete. And I felt that mostly with sort of the setup of things in the beginning, but I do think as it goes on, it does find a rhythm that I did settle into, and I did really enjoy it for what it was going for. But I do think it felt a little too ambitious for this go around, and could have done with a little bit of streamlining, in my opinion, but still very entertaining. And I mean, that Daniel Pemberton score is also like one of the best of the year. I absolutely love the way that this movie sounds. And yeah, you get to the end and you're really excited and you're intrigued about what's going to happen in the future. For me, I wasn't quite as wowed by it as like Nicole said. You know, it doesn't really have the surprise factor this go around. And also for me, the like references to the other Spider-Man movies is just like I have such a repellent aura to that. My crowd ate it up, but I don't care. It kind of feels like jingling keys in front of a baby to me when that happens. Sorry. I'm not a big fan of that. So, and this movie does rely on that a little bit more and not really for me. So, like, good movie, very much enjoyed it. Didn't quite reach the heights of the first film, but I would still absolutely recommend it to people.
Well, call me a baby because I like the keys dangled.
Okay,
Because
well,
I thought
good
that
for
some
you.
of those moments really worked because I think the thing that I love the most about this movie, um, beyond obviously the visuals in the score and everything that's been mentioned, but the one thing that really hasn't been mentioned a lot is Lord and Miller stepping back behind the script and creating this two-parter. They produced the first film and really kind of launched it from there, but it's their story and their sense of humor and their sense of world building that I love, and maybe a movie that we'll talk about here later when we get to our top fives. And what I think that they are so great at building up great humor, but also being able to take emotionality and center it perfectly on their protagonists. And they are just some of the best storytellers that we have working today. And they know how to work nostalgia. I mean, shoot, they worked on Lego movie and 21 Jump Street. They worked a little bit on that Solo movie before they were kicked off, which makes absolutely no sense why you would kick off, essentially two of the best story writers in the world. And then they got kicked off to then help create this. And then they have taken this sort of giant story. And when you go into part one and you see a part one and you go, man, I really hope they're going to stick the landing. With these guys writing the script, I know for a fact that they're going to stick the landing because their track record speaks volumes. This isn't like a J.J. Abrams sort of thing where you see like a one guy makes one movie and you're like, oh, he can never make a good sequel and something like that. Like they have proven to make a good sequel and be able to honor their characters and to have the audience on a great ride. I think that this movie, from an animation standpoint, is it's like the kitchen sink in the best way. I mean, you're talking about the way in which these characters are incorporated in all these different worlds that they live in and different styles and how they all speak to those characters specifically. But then a lot of it also too is the background visuals and how the worlds themselves, even some of them can look similar, yet have their own distinctions to make them just a smidge different, to then even throw off the characters. And that's where one of our twists happened. I think also too the ideas of, like you're mentioning, Josh, taking some of the stuff from the past and really not necessarily even just using it as like something like No Way Home does, where it's essentially like, hey, these guys, remember watching them in movies? Well, now they're all together. Like this is actually like taking the themes of those movies and taking the idea of essentially the story of Spider-Man and how it's all one giant circle. It's also kind of a criticism of almost even like comic books themselves, how they're always the same thing. They're always going to be like this arc, this person dies, Uncle Ben dead, Aunt May is old, he's going to fall in love, or she's going to fall in love with their best friend, and then they'll die and then they have to avenge him, and da 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 da. All those different things get really looked at here and examined at in such a brilliant way. And that's where Oscar Isaac's character comes in, who I think is absolutely fantastic. Besides just like anytime you hear Oscar Isaac's voice, it just feels good. You're like in good hands. You know what I mean? In good hands, Oscar stands. You know what I'm saying? And it just feels really, really, really good to have him in this film, because he was teased at the end of the last one. And it almost felt like he was going to be a villain, but he's not really a villain here. There's a different villain, and I actually kind of like the villain here because it's essentially like we always see those side characters at the beginning of a movie kind of used as like the way to kick it all off, and then the real main villain comes like a Doc Ock or a Rhino or something like that. You know what I mean? Or a Green Goblin. Nope, that side one becomes the main villain here, and I thought Jason Schwartzman voice acting in this was really great, and he had good rapport. Overall, I thought it was just a really fun, fantastic film. I mean, Haley Steinfeld in this movie as Gwen is extraordinary. I mean, yeah, Jake Johnson coming in here and just knocking out his scenes with his baby. That's the most adorable thing ever. And I was genuinely surprised by the final ending a little bit. I wasn't too surprised. I knew that there was going to be an ending coming, but I was going to leave you on a cliffhanger. But it's kind of interesting to see where it's all going to wrap up. And then essentially, the first film is Miles. This one's Gwen. It'll be interesting then at the end for it probably to be about for both of them. And so yeah, and that score by Daniel Pemberton. My God, I've been listening to tracks the last 3 days since I've seen it, and it's, in particular, the one where all the Spider-Men are chasing Miles, and the sort of build up in that track, I just thought was absolutely incredible. Any other thoughts on the film, guys? No spoilers, no nothing.
Well, I was just gonna say, I really love, you're talking about Oscar Isaac's character. I really love sort of when you have a character who is the antagonist, but not the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that character really is acting as that for Miles, and sort of representing that, more sort of strong take on what the multiverse has to be. And I really appreciated that. And I think it gives him some really interesting stuff to do. Also, that spider baby is the cutest thing I've ever seen. I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed this idea of getting to see a Spider-Man who has, is building a family and is sort of going through that, because I feel like that's a place that we don't often get to see this character. And I really... Also, I will say I was really cracked up in the scenes with all the different Spider-Mans, where you've got the one that's a car, you've got the cowboy one, and all of the creativity that they took to that with, I thought was really fun. But yeah, I think they've done we've all said, they've done a really good job with this. I don't think it quite lives up to the first one, but I think it is as good a sequel as could have been. I think the middle film in a trilogy is always the most difficult one, because you're having to do so much setup and so much follow through. But yeah, it's the kind of movie that I am telling all of my friends to go and see.
Yeah,
I didn't like the baby.
Well, you don't like children
in general. I don't.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It was, for me, it was kind of cheap. When a sitcom is in its 7th year and they're like, what do we do? I don't know. I have a baby. So it was not that successful, but Jake Johnson was great and funny and perfect in everything that he did.
When he explains to Miles though, what made him comfortable with the idea of having the baby,
very emotional.
I cried.
That was really, really lovely. I was absolutely on board with that.
Yeah.
And to Josh's point, I'm generally really anti fan service with a lot of these kinds of movies.
Yeah.
That are wink so heavily or demand an enormous commitment to 35 movies and 10 TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
I did like it here, and I was kind of surprised by it. The Donald Glover thing, I was like, that was great. I thought that was really fucking funny. And I also
Venom
did
stuff, the Venom
stuff was great. Those were the main ones. I thought that was pretty funny. And I did love the hundreds of spider people that there were, because they all took themselves so seriously, and that made it really funny. I liked that a lot. And yeah, I'm not a fan service enjoyer, but it got me.
Yeah, I wish it did for me. I was just my eyes rolled so hard in those moments, and maybe just because also what they're referencing are movies that I hate. I don't like
That's
that
fair.
We're now looking back on these movies as if they are good, and it's no, you just like Andrew Garfield. Can we
He got a lot of FaceTime, and even Tobey Maguire, and I'm like, is Tom Holland not gonna get what's going on here?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, especially after, isn't it Tom Holland who said that he thinks that the first Spider-Verse movie is the best Spider-Man movie.
I don't know
Like,
if that's like a thing with Marvel or something. I don't know, but
Yeah,
they still
there
have the
might be
deal.
kind of
Oh,
a
but
rights
also too,
issue.
he's like
No,
technically
because
is
his are Sony Marvel, just like no. I
yeah,
don't
but
think-
it tends, but it also too like his timeline is erased and people don't know that he's Spider-Man. So maybe that's the
does
thing
anything
too.
matter in a multiverse or
I'm
whatever?
just
Nothing matters.
trying to give you a reason why he's not there.
People
I mean, do
don't
you really
die,
want him there?
they can be somewhere
Like,
else. All of the things.
I mean, honestly, I don't give a crap that he's there because we have Miles Morales,
Multiverse is
and
just
that's
an
much
escape
better.
hatch for a screenplay.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's becoming the new. We got to make everything dark in movies now. Now everything's got to be a multiverse. You know what I mean?
No, that was The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Mm.
the only
Yeah,
thing-
but like I still did appreciate a lot of the things that they did bring up, and to the point of them like making the commentary of the repetitive nature of the stories of Spider-Man and kind of breaking free from that. Like I did like that as a concept. I did. I think my problem is that is introduced like at the 90-minute mark of this 2.5-hour movie. And it
Yeah.
felt like, wow, this is a big thing to introduce pretty late into the film. And that kind of goes back to my feeling of it feeling a bit overstuffed. It just feels like it has so much that it wants to talk about and so many like big set pieces to showcase that it didn't all coalesce that well for me. And it ended up kind of creating weird pacing issues for the movie too, where I would be really into it and then it would slow down for an emotional moment, which I would enjoy, but it really kind of disrupted the momentum of the movie for me. And it just felt like so much stuff is being crammed in here that's really good, but the balance of it just wasn't quite right for me. So it ended up being a movie that I liked, but I didn't fully invest myself in the storytelling, whereas I felt like the first movie was able to get that balance pretty well.
Yeah, I will say this though, from a visual standpoint, the first time I watched Into the Spider-Verse, because I think it's such a new experience, really in the way that sort of the animation, how they were doing it, and how it felt so fresh and very original back in 2018. It gave me a bit of a headache, to be honest. And then I was also like trying to catch up with everything that was going on because it is such a movie that you almost feel like you're in you are Spider-Man because it's cutting back so much. It's going like a comic book so many times.
I would hate to have ADD or PTSD watching a movie like this.
Exactly. So then, but this go around, I thought it was even though there is a lot going on, I thought it was really clean and I thought the action sequences were really well put together and the new characters were really introduced. I do agree with the comments about the sound mix. There were not just the beginning of the film, but I thought a couple of character introductions where the sound mix was a little rough, like especially with what is it, Spider-Punk, which is Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah. Truly did not understand if it was a mixing problem or a me problem, just not understanding the accent. I did not know.
No, I thought that too, Josh, but then I'm like, no, I'm usually pretty good at this because I'm one of those people that everybody complains about Nolan. I'm like, no, it's not as bad as people are saying it is. And then and I was like, oh well, maybe it's my theater because it just got updated. But then I started hearing all that stuff. I was like, oh no, it's the mix. So but I mean you kind of get what they're saying, I guess, or because they're usually when they introduce a new character, especially a new Spider-Man, it is essentially them introducing themselves the way that like, all right, let's do this again. My name is da da da, and and doing the whole like comic book setup, which is always really funny.
It was amazing though.
Yeah. Oh, Kaluuya. I mean,
oh my God,
so good. I mean,
it was. I mean, I didn't have sound issues. I don't think at that point, and not that many accent issues. Just I just started thinking about him on Skins, and I'm like, oh, okay. This is what this is.
Oh, so Eric just like floated off into a different world to say, I'm watching a movie right now.
Skins and Snatch and like, all right, you're trying really hard to fuck with me with this accent, but I got it.
Probably. I mean, like honestly, with this, I mean, he just continues to prove he's one of the best talents we have today.
He's fantastic.
He's fantastic. And
he's great.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like an A+ voice cast.
They're all doing a great job.
Good.
Even like Andy Samberg, like dropping in there as like this really underconfident, but then like cocky Spider-Man that like you see a couple times. He's the guy that goes with Issa Rae and Oscar Isaac to stop Miles at the end. Truly just kind of like a hilarious little cameo that he has there. I agree with Nicole. Like all the various different Spider-Men have their own quirks or quibbles, and there's like even with Lord and Miller writing this, there's even like the Spider-Man Lego version that's in here for like half a second that's really funny and
really funny.
And
when they revisit it at first it's like, oh god, that's really funny and really brief, and then they bring it back and then it's
and then like they're like, yeah, Peter, you're one of our best, and bloop, 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 and stuff like that. So it's a nice callback like to the stuff that they did in Lego Movie, which I always really liked those movies a lot. And but
I wonder if having 3 directors
that helps,
a benefit or a hindrance. Because I think depending on how much
the first one had 3.
I know, but still, I think that can be either part of the acclaim or part of the blame, depending on how you feel about the movie.
Yeah, I think that also it's 3 entirely new directors.
Yeah,
it's I mean, the only consistency is like Lord and Miller sort of coming from the producer side and them being very more hands-on this go around with writing the script and everything. So they're the continuity that brings it all together. But yeah, I agree. It will be interesting to see, obviously. I mean, the movie's doing really well at the box office. And see how
great review by Sophia Simonello on the site.
Great review by Sophia. She did a fantastic job as always, as everybody always does. But yeah, she just knocked it out of the park. She did it on very short notice too, which thank you, Sophia, for that.
Yeah,
thanks, Sony. Not but anyway, then I mean, the movie, the sequel comes out next March. Comes out March 29th, 3 days after my birthday, so it's my birthday weekend, so everybody should remember that. And also, I'm telling you, it's going to be another big Barbie Oppenheimer week, because Beyond the Spider-Verse,
I'm buying tickets to the movie, but
Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out the same weekend as Mickey 17, the new Bong Joon-ho film. So yeah, it'll be a pretty big weekend.
Yeah,
if those both stay.
Probably will have naked Robert Pattinson, so
I mean,
I know where I'm going.
You're a move Spider-Man. Yeah. Yeah, you can't have Oscar Isaac and Daniel Kaluuya in a movie and not do something about it, right?
I mean, did you see the backside of the Oscar Isaac character?
I mean,
that's all I saw.
Yeah,
saying like the more angry
he got that in there, honestly,
the more pronounced it became, and I'm like, just keep getting more angry.
Also, just
like we cast Oscar Isaac for a reason.
Yeah, and I know those reasons now. But also, I do want to say one last thing, and then we'll move into our top fives. But it, it is very nice for me, at least, to see a Latino superhero, multiple Latino superheroes in a movie, and they don't feel like stereotypes. They feel like they have agency. They feel like they have a voice. They feel like they have clear motivations and build up, and people that are behind the writing as well as direction, as well as just in all areas of craft, being able to showcase just these truly well-rounded characters. So that felt very good to finally see that, because that is something that I've criticized many franchises, but specifically the MCU and the DCEU, is that those are where they're falling very, very short, is on Latino characters. But Miles, and then obviously was Oscar Isaac's character's name in the film
Miguel.
Yes,
Miguel O'Hara.
Right, Miguel O'Hara. And then obviously, I guess in this Flash movie, a movie that I'm trying not to think about too much because of everything, but the fact that the Supergirl is Latino, she's a Colombian actress as well, so that it's good steps in the right direction for.
Oh, you mentioned the Flash before Blue Beetle.
Well, she's playing Supergirl, for Christ's sake.
I know, but the other movie is literally the lead of the movie.
I know,
and not problematic.
I know, but that also, is anybody going to see that movie? We almost picked it as a bomb movie, Josh. Like,
well, this is your opportunity to.
They're just
the movie
dumping
up,
it in August.
Ryan, I'm trying to do your job.
No, that's fair. Blue Beetle's out there too, but no one's going to see it, and it's going to break my heart.
Ryan,
You know what
so
I mean?
selective with his advocacy.
I
Gee,
know.
talk about problematic.
Oh my God. Go have tea with Barbie and calm down, Eric. Anyway, Across the Spider-Verse. It's in theaters right now. Highly recommend. I think we all highly recommend to go see it. I mean, Josh, would you kind of say it like felt more like Back to the Future Part 2 almost at times? Like that's what I was feeling a little bit with
I
like
mean, that's
the first part of it, more than
I can
like a two
understand that a little
tower
bit.
situation than anything, you know.
A little bit. It's better than
Oh,
those
yeah.
types of movies for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
do think it puts way more work into making sure that you are invested in these characters, and it gives them like somewhat of an arc that you can kind of attach yourself to while leaving room for more in the future. But for me, it's not quite as high as the previous movie for me, but I'd still recommend it. It's still a really good movie that I was entertained by.
Josh said that his favorite Spider-Man movie was Into the Spider-Verse. Eric, do you have a favorite Spider-Man movie?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you for answering the God damn it, answering the question. Nicole, do you have a favorite Spider-Man movie?
Oh, that's really hard. I will say I think that Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie, but I do personally have a soft spot for all of the Tom Holland ones.
Okay.
They were my intro into Spider-Man.
Okay.
I had like never seen a Spider-Man film, so they have a lot of nostalgic factor for me.
Okay. Eric, you're not gonna answer a question. That's fine.
What? Of which one's my favorite?
Yeah, do you have a favorite one of them all?
I said I don't really have a favorite.
It's such a
so
non-answer.
it is a non-answer. I like most of them, just not the amazing.
It's probably just because he can't remember what happens at any of them.
I saw them all before any of you, so that is
Back in my day, I saw them all, and it was $5 a ticket.
I watched the TV show. That was the best. Peter Parker was like 30 years old.
I still love Spider-Man 2. I've come around on it. I don't think it's the greatest comic book movie of all time, like some people think it is. But I think that movie is really special, and I just love Raimi's direction in that. I love Doc Ock. Alfred Molina is fantastic. That's some of the stuff that really connected with me in No Way Home was like those glimpses and moments of that. And you know, Toby is Toby, but I will say he is the Spider-Man I grew up and fell in love with the character. And no, I do not like Spider-Man 3, where he's dancing like a buffoon. But Spider-Man 2 kind of blends it all perfectly.
Is that what they're calling like Babylon now? Spider-Man 3?
No, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Spider-Man 3, Nicole, but like there's a moment where he's like going down it is a
wild movie.
It is
looking back on Spider-Man 3, it is so crazy that the studio let him make that film.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched that and I was like, these are the Spider-Man movies that everyone's pretentious about? Like, okay. I mean, the first two, I was like, all right, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, but then
I was like,
no, people really do hate the third one, though. It's getting one of those, like, I feel like a lot of the blockbusters from the early 2000s are getting revisited by people that grew up in that time and have now like spaces to write pieces, and not going to have one,
or just can't shut up,
or that too, you know. Okay, top 5 this week, inspired by Across the Spider-Verse. We are doing our top 5 films, top 5 animated films that are non-Disney or Pixar. So you have to take Mouse and Company and throw them out. We've done our top 5 Pixar movies before. Eric cried on that episode. It was wonderful. River of Tears.
Today.
He will not be crying today, though.
Ooh, maybe though.
Maybe though. You never know.
No, I won't.
We'll go Nicole, Josh, Eric, and then myself. If you've never heard of top 5 before, essentially we're going to give out our top 5s. If a person does have that film, or if that movie is on multiple people's lists, we will talk about it all at once in that moment, even if that is somebody's number 1 pick, just to save time. So, Nicole, any criteria other than just not having any Pixar or Disney movies in your list? And then do you have then what is your number 5?
Yeah, my criteria was that it could not have been Disney or Pixar when it came out, because of certain acquisitions that have occurred.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, and now everyone knows my number 1.
I think
yeah, that gave that away.
Well, to be honest though, everything about me gave that away. So.
Yeah, this is I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you all know what's coming.
We all know what's coming.
So
I'm actually in the wind here a little bit, but okay.
This is easy.
Okay, I feel like if you asked anyone, like, what do you think is Nicole's number 1 animated movie, this would be the answer.
I put it on my honorable mention just because it was the first thing I thought of, because the first thing I thought of was, oh, this is Nicole's number 1. I'm not even kidding. Like right here.
Okay.
All right.
Amazing.
Nicole, you're number 5.
My number 5 is a nostalgic one. It is also, I think, the birthplace of my love for Kenneth Branagh, and it is The Road to El Dorado, which I maintain is like a classic of its time. It is such a fun movie. It is so different from, I feel like, a lot of what was being done in that time. It's such a fun concept, and also the voice acting in it is just amazing. I really love it, and it's one of those ones that I always sort of forget like isn't Disney or Pixar, because it is how do I put this nicely? It is a higher caliber than a lot of the other film studios of that time period who were making films sort of for family audiences, if that makes sense. Like that were not like sort of very specialist or Asian, production companies. But yeah, I love that movie, and I literally the other day was thinking about how I need to rewatch it.
Yeah. No. Anybody else have that on their list? Anybody else?
I don't have it, but I fully support its inclusion. I also love that movie. It is a favorite of my childhood as well. It's funny that you mentioned the love of Kenneth Branagh, because it was sort of a similar thing for me, but more embarrassingly, it was also kind of carryover love for him and who's the other actor?
Kevin Kline.
Kline. Because Wild Wild West was like my favorite movie when I was 9 years old. Right.
So I love you, Josh, because you love Wild Wild West.
So that was like carryover love for that too. Yep. And yeah, like those Elton John songs, I still sing them.
Okay, I was literally just sitting here being like, it's tough to be a god. Like that song.
I love it. I love that movie.
They're just as good. I think that music is just as good as The Lion King at times, because like Elton John.
I would co-sign with that.
Yeah.
They're
at least the like boppy songs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I remember when Nickelodeon had like a concert one weekend where like it was literally like it was a bunch of random kids in a room, and Elton John's just at a piano singing El Dorado. You know what I mean? It was like, what is going on with this movie? Like they're hyping it up like it's the Super Bowl. It's incredible. So
my Super Bowl.
They had like and then like the sports sequence in there too. It's like,
oh my god, with the like armadillo,
with the armadillo
thing. Yeah.
It was really, really good.
So good.
Really good.
Also with 2 hot cartoon leads.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 hot cartoons.
Yeah.
Okay, 3. But let's just say it.
Yep.
Well, he's not going to talk about the female lead in there. So.
We're talking.
I was watching clips of El Dorado not too long ago, and I was like, man, maybe there was another reason why I was also obsessed with this movie, because oh my god, why are they so sexy?
Why do they have so much chemistry together?
Yes.
Why was that movie so horny, honestly?
Yes, also that.
Yeah,
I think that's one thing that we can give to these non-Disney, non-Pixar movies too, is their willingness to be more flirtatious, risky, and kind of lean into that.
There was a time where Disney was willing to do that. Like, you cannot tell me that Hunchback of Notre Dame is not one of the horniest animated films ever made.
Yeah, that movie is dark.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
That movie is bleak.
That movie is like
Bleecker
horny
Street.
in weird ways.
You know what I mean? Man, that movie is. It's dealing with all kinds of sin. All right. It really is like after like Lion King and everything, and Lion King too is kind of
Lion King also has some sequences.
Kind of stuff. Anyway, we're not talking about Disney.
Yeah.
Who cares about them? See what you do, Erik. Josh, you're number 5.
Well, first of all, I will say that this was extremely difficult to narrow this down because there are so many movies that I love that I would want to talk about, and to just pick 5 was very, very, very difficult. And so because of that, my number 5 is going to be a movie that maybe in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't say is like one of the best ever made, but I don't feel like people talk about it a lot. And it's a favorite, especially for me when I was younger. And I do think it has some interesting things in it. And I just wanted to talk about it anyway. So my number 5 is a movie called Cats Don't Dance.
Wow.
And yeah, this is not
why we have Josh on the show.
They don't talk about this movie a whole lot, and I understand, but it's essentially like a metaphor for Hollywood, like early Hollywood, where they were discriminating against minorities, except the minorities in this movie are animals. And I think to impart that kind of a history lesson on children is just so incredibly interesting, and a way that I never would have really thought about it, but it totally works. And you get these situations where it's like literally animals that want to be the leads of these movies, and they can only be like in a Noah's Ark film, and they're just the animals that have one word as they're getting onto the ark. And it makes those comparisons. And the villain is essentially Shirley Temple, who's like insane and chaotic, and her butler henchman is Max from Sunset Boulevard. Basically, it's a wild movie, but like I said, not something I would ever consider to be one of the best of all time. But I think it's so creative, really fun and inventive, with a very like interesting like kind of style to it. It's a Warner Brothers film, and I think this was during the era where Warner Brothers was making really interesting not live action, but feature length cartoons that I really enjoyed. So just to shout out a forgotten movie, Cats Don't Dance. That's my number 5.
You gotta catch that out. I've never seen that film.
It's great.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, Eric's seen
I
all
love
these
that
movies.
pick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gonna have to put that on the watch list on my
highly recommend it. It's really good.
Yeah. Erik, you're number 5.
Yes, this is very difficult, and I also basically waited to the last minute to do this, so it's a really ramshackle
Despicable Me 3. Let's go.
Basic list. But I think at first I was going to try and use the parameters of not having too many of the same kind of things, like no more than one stop animation or no more than one like certain like kind of thing. And I said, nah, no, whatever. My 5th is the Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I am just a big fan of stop motion anyway. Coraline and Paranorman and all of I love them all. So I just wanted to choose something that was representative, and I think that's what a lot of my list is going to be anyway, is more representative than like hard fact 1 through 5. Great voice cast, production design, music. It's probably my favorite Wes Anderson.
Spoiler alert for a couple weeks from now.
I don't know. I love it. I love it.
It's a great movie. It's on my list. It's my number 2.
Ooh.
I love this movie.
I'm just like, I love it.
I've loved it since it came out in 2009, I believe. Loved it more than Up when that in that year. I think that it's
way better than Up.
It has that, just like, I mean, Wes Anderson has an aesthetic, and it just really blends perfectly here in this Roald Dahl adaptation. And he gets to be whimsical, but then also working with a really great script that he and Noah Baumbach wrote together for this adaptation. They incorporate a lot of sneakily adult humor, which is something that we talked about, like darkly adding, what the cuss instead of cussing in there, and it provides a different kind of,
the eyes. Oh my God,
the eyes of it all, the lighting of everything as well. The voice acting is phenomenal. I think like Clooney in this role was perfect. Schwartzman's great. Meryl Streep is great.
is
you know,
one of my
it's-
favorite things that she's done.
Oh, she's so good. Michael Gambon too, playing the sinister bad guy
Yeah.
human. It all the sensitivities or like complaints that you might have of it's too quirky or it's too this or about like all these different Wes Anderson movies, they kind of blend perfectly here, and it's under 90 minutes. So it's and that's the perfect thing about Wes Anderson movies, as I've recently rewatched all of them in anticipation for Asteroid City. His movies are always under 2 hours long. I know for some they can feel, like they've overstayed their welcome 5 minutes in, but this one really just fits it perfectly. And it's a breath of fresh air because he had come off of like having 2 films in Life Aquatic and Darjeeling Limited that were a little bit lesser than him. So this kind of catapulted him into having this and then Grand Budapest back to back. So
and his return to stop motion animation for me had very middling results, especially
with Isle of Dogs.
Yeah.
See, I'm an Isle of Dogs defender. I love Isle of Dogs.
It's a good movie. It's not as good as this
Isle
one.
of Cats, and maybe I would have been kinder to it.
Well, Cats is CGI. That's not animated, so you can't put that on.
That is not what I.
Anybody else have Fantastic Mr. Fox on their list? No, sadly.
I do not. Okay. I do like it. I think it is a very good movie, but it is not in my top 5.
Okay.
Right. There actually might be another 2009 movie that I will mention later in my top 5.
Josh and Nicole, what did you just say?
I haven't seen it.
Well, you have some homework to do. I think you.
I know. No,
honestly, I think you really would love it. I think you.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
a movie I am planning to watch this month.
Okay. All right. My number 5 is a more recent film that came out. It's actually my most recent of all the titles, I believe. It's an anime. I kind of have it like a couple of anime films here on the list, but this one really moved me when I first saw it, and it came out in 2017, and that was Your Name, which I think that Shinkai's made a couple of films. He's made Weathering for You. He's made Suzumi this year, and I don't think that they've come even close to Your Name. I think that's the kind of, when you get put up on a pedestal by so many people as to be the next Miyazaki, and you come out with a movie like this, and it really emotionally leads, builds up and to just about all the sensitivities and of things that would come out of a Studio Ghibli project. I thought it was absolutely heartbreaking. I didn't know what to expect when I walked into it. I think that the story of these 2 teenagers are sort of connected by this event that happens through time and everything. It's no wonder that Hollywood wants to kind of recreate it into like a live action film, because it fits that mold, but it's also just really beautiful love story at the end of it. A mini disaster movie also too. Shinkai's kind of talked about disaster movies over the last couple of films, but they just haven't really stuck the landing for me the last couple of movies, especially Weathering for You. That movie just felt like it was all over the place. This is much more focused, but primarily just because it's about these 2 and their relationship. There's a couple of moments in the film that truly, every time I see it, I still gasp at the level of tricks that he's got up his sleeve in it. So it's one that I do highly recommend. I think you can just like rent it on Amazon or on iTunes, but it's one you should really catch, because I still think it's really good, and one of the better films in 2017. I think it was in my top 10 of that year, so I really love that movie. Anybody have that on their list? Your Name?
No. Don't have it, but I remember really liking it when I saw it. It has been a while, so I don't remember much from it, but like I said, I still remember the initial viewing being very, very positive for me. So I just haven't seen it in a minute.
It's a good one. I highly recommend everybody go catch that one out. All right, number 4, Nicole Ackman. You're number 4.
Okay. This is another one that feels honestly a little bit like to me to even go there, but who would I be? I who spent hours and more money than I should admit in the Van Gogh Museum last month. If I didn't have Loving Vincent on this list, I think it is one of the most imaginative uses of animation, like as a genre. The way that they sort of do the art, mimic the artistic style of Van Gogh in it is so cool. I also think, like, talk about a voice cast. Obviously, I am here to be like the animated film with Saoirse Ronan. But no, I do genuinely think it's just such a beautiful movie, and the story that it's telling is so beautiful, and it just really feels like one of those things where like every part of it comes together to create a really perfect film.
I still need to see it.
I only saw it like this past year for the first time, which is crazy considering that like
Wow.
Van Gogh is one of the things that I like study.
Yeah, and Saoirse is another thing you study.
It was one of those ones that came out while I was living in England, and like the release dates like just didn't work out for when I was here versus there. There were a couple of films that did that, but I finally got around to it and I was like, oh, this is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. And it's such a cool concept too. Like, I also watched some of the stuff about the making of it, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Eric, how was Van Gogh when you hung out with
it? Fuck up. Damn it.
Sorry, I had to. It was right there.
It was right there.
I couldn't.
Fuck yourself.
Josh, you're number 4 as we transition away from that.
My number 4, I will admit, this is a movie that I also have not seen in a very long time, but I do remember just how much I responded to it the first time I saw it, and so I felt like I needed to include it, even if my memory isn't quite as strong as it used to be for it. And that's Princess Mononoke. It feels like you have to include something from Miyazaki on here, and of what I have seen from his filmography, this is the one that absolutely kind of hit the hardest for me. I just think that it still has that beautiful animation that all of his movies do have, but there was something just also with this one, with the storytelling that and the themes that it was exploring, that I just found to be just so incredibly captivating. And like I said, even though I haven't seen it in a very long time, I still remember the very kind of visceral impact it left me with the first time I saw it. And so I felt like I needed to include it, if only for that.
It's a masterpiece, Josh. That movie is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say that a lot about director Miyazaki's movies. That was the only criterion I had on, or criteria I had here on this list, is that I only have one Miyazaki film, because I mean I could have just put 5 and then called it a day.
I mean, that's another top 5 right there.
That's a whole nother top 5. We will have that probably when his new movie comes out. But yes, that movie is one that, I mean, I remember seeing it in college, and I was blown away by it, because it's sandwiched in between all these like really whimsical, charming little movies, and then it's his most serious subject matter next to like The Wind Rises, I would say.
It's so violent.
It's very violent. Like the only one that's PG-13. It's a war movie. It's got a lot going for it. And it's one that I desperately need to rewatch again, because I just think of images from it all the time. Eric, do you have that on your list? Nicole?
I don't, but it was in my sort of honorable mentions, and because I don't think we can have Spirited Away, because that was bought by Disney right away, and released by Disney. So we can't really have that. We shouldn't be able to have that on our list.
Yeah, I guess if it was released by.
So like before that, before Spirited Away, we can have.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, that is. I mean, that and Kiki, I was like, how do I even choose?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Eric, speaking of choices, you got your number 4.
Like I told you offline, my list is pretty basic.
So basic. And
sorry. But I went actually with Akira, because it was kind of a big movie for me as a teenager. I was a big fan of Tron, and it gave me, Tron vibes. I was not like a reader of the mangas or anything like that. So I just enjoyed the physicality and the action and violence and of it. And it just exists as a classic that I don't have a lot of like what I would even call classics on my list. There's a newness factor, I think, on my list, especially with taking Disney movies out of the picture. Otherwise, I'd have like Fox and the Hound 5 times, or something like that.
Snow White, because
but
he was at the premiere.
it's but like my 4 and 5 are very different than my 1, 2, 3, which are very emotionally driven choices, and 4 and 5 are not. This is more nostalgic and great animation, and I'm glad we haven't had like a remake or live action version, even though there is the threat of it. We've been able to exist this long without it, so it kind of gets to be always just like Kieran and I really love. It's just great.
We got the live action remake. It was called Nope. Just for that, when she's sliding at the end.
I thought you were gonna say it was called Chronicle.
That too.
That really is like
the
live action
okay.
Akira.
Yeah,
Either one of those. No, I agree with you, Eric, because if they ever do remake it, I just
Well, especially with who's attached to do it now. It's like,
if it's Taika, I swear to God, burn it properly.
Well, it's like the time between when that was announced that he was going to be the director and now is like a world of
because he's done like
difference.
45 projects since and like burned all the goodwill.
Yeah.
I mean, would we even remember that he directed it? No, it's gonna start. Would we even remember that he's going to direct it? Because if we can't remember who directed Casablanca, clearly we're not going to remember who directed
I hope
that.
he forgets that he's directing it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Maybe it's like a Del Toro situation. We got too many projects, I can't do it. So anyway,
Fingers crossed.
My number 4, very basic pick. I kind of was spoiling it a little bit in our Across the Spider-Verse discussion. My number 4 is the Lego Movie, Lord Miller's film that came out a couple of years ago. I just think that movie is a joke a minute. It's truly one of the funniest movies, one of the funniest animated movies ever. There's just it's also just this massive meta commentary running through it about IP, existing IP, how to use that, and how studios and companies use and abuse it left and right. But I mean, yes, I know he's a horrible human being, but Chris Pratt's hilarious in it. Elizabeth Banks hilarious. Morgan Freeman truly hysterical in the movie. Charlie Day, spaceship, all of it's great. So much stuff in that movie. I laugh all the time. I laugh at like Channing Tatum playing Superman, and I think Green Lantern is played by Jonah Hill, and they don't want to include him in any of the other stuff. And Will Arnett is Batman because then he spawned off the Lego Batman movie, which I also think is a really great movie, but he's fantastic here. There's like Will Forte is like a sea creature sort of Lego thing that is truly hilarious. There's so many good jokes in this. It is one of those movies that I remember watching in the theater with my wife and just absolutely we couldn't stop laughing. We wanted to see it again immediately. The sequel, not great, not very good.
It's okay.
But it doesn't clear the bar of this first one, which is I think is truly one of the funniest movies of the last like 15-20 years. So
yeah, it's not on my list mainly because I figured somebody would probably say it, so I bet on that so I could free up a spot. And yeah, it's a great movie. I feel like Lord and Miller, they pack so many jokes into like one frame.
They're just
it's
like a
incredible.
great layered dip. You got to keep going back and scooping down to the bottom.
Yeah, like I remember one of my favorite jokes is when they go to like that Western town and it pops up like West Lego or whatever, and they get into the town. You could still see it in the background, over on the horizon, and it's like, man, and it's so small, but it's a detail that I just love. And there's a lot of stuff like that. And you can see it in the Spider-Man movies too. That it's just their sensibilities as kind of humorous people. I really love because they do just. You get one joke, and then there's like 5 more that you didn't notice that you could just go back and watch again.
Well, they also are like the kings of, oh, really? They're going to make a 21 Jump Street movie? Oh, make a Lego movie? Oh, more Spider-Man? Oh, God, can we stop with it? And then they make great movies. They're like the king of like, oh, you have low expectations for us? We're about to blow your mind at it. And I duly respect the hell out of them for that because they find new inventive ways of telling stuff that could easily be commercialized garbage. I mean, like, Lego Movie could easily be the Emoji Movie, right? But it's because of their writing and their comedic sensitivities as to why that movie is so much more original than like an Illumination project.
Pretty rude. That's my number one, the Emoji Movie.
But you do relate a lot with poop. So there you go. Anyway, Nicole, we're in our top 3. Is number 3 for you?
Well, this is a great transition because my number 3 actually is Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the Emoji Movie, and I was about to be like, I am so sorry.
Can you imagine? No, I have taste. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, for all the reasons I feel like that we've already sort of said and discussing across the Spider-Verse earlier, but Into the Spider-Verse is just a movie that continually like blows my mind with what is able to be done with animation. I think it's so visually stunning. I think it's such an interesting take on the character of Spider-Man, who is a character that I love. And I think that the way that it, utilizes the multiverse is like the smartest way I've ever seen it done. It's the only way that I don't like poke holes in. And I think that the voice cast is stunning. And honestly, like, let's be real, they had me at Jake Johnson. But yeah, Josh is like, we know. But truly, no, I think it's a perfect film. So I like had to have it on my list, even though it's not my 1 or 2, because those are my more like emotionally made decisions. But yeah, I think it's perfect.
I love how that movie has there's literally a gag in that movie about a bagel, and now in the sequel that has giant ramifications for it, and it's those kind of great little details of that movie when you watch it very close to Across the Spider-Verse. Then they really mirror each other really well. But yes, Into the Spider-Verse, great movie. Does anybody else have that on their list?
I do not, but I endorse it. It's a really, really good film.
Really good.
Absolutely.
All right, Josh, your number 3.
My number 3 is The Iron Giant. Which the more I think about it, the more I think that this is Brad Bird's like best movie. That's tough to say. Yeah, but I really do think that it has the most to say, just really. And like, this is a movie I remember watching in theaters as a kid and loving it. But yeah, the more that I think about it as I get older, I, for one, just love that setting. Like, I grew up on 1950s sci-fi movies, so I just have an affection for just that time period that it's set in. And yeah, this whole commentary about war and not wanting to be a weapon, and you just feel so much for this creature, and you're just so pulled into the relationship between the two of them. And yeah, I just think it's beautiful. I really do. And you get to that ending and it just works. It works so well. The emotion just hits so hard, and it's completely earned too. And it's absolutely Vin Diesel's superior voice performance.
I was gonna say, it might be his best performance.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. So beautiful, beautiful film that only gets richer the more I think about it and the more time goes by.
Yeah. I think Brad Bird's a genius. I mean, obviously for his Pixar stuff, I think his Pixar stuff, he's the best director that Pixar's ever had. And I think Iron Giant is a masterpiece. I really, and his Mission Impossible film was also fantastic. I mean, he's a storyteller that I trust a lot. Because you're mentioning it, Josh, like, we grew up on watching his films, seeing the Incredibles and Ratatouille in theaters as well, also when I was a kid. I mean, Iron Giant's like, I haven't seen it in a long, long time. That's probably why it's not, on my 5. But if I had seen it really, and it was the one I was thinking about, I should watch it before I do this list, and I just didn't time, it's a thing. So, it's one that I desperately want to rewatch soon because I just love his movies. Erik, is that on your list?
It is on my list.
Okay, where is it at, Erik?
It's on my list.
You have to say it now. We have to talk about it.
Why do I have to say it now?
Say it now, because we talk about it all at once, so we just get it out of the way.
It is my number 1.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
No, it is my number one. And not that it was like super easy, but it was pretty easy.
Basic.
This
I'm just kidding.
1999 was already like one of the
Oh.
best years of film ever.
Tell me
And
about it.
this exists so high on that list from that year. And for all the reasons that Josh said, the landscape of 50 sci-fi is so beautifully realized and fun. Yeah, it's silly how good Vin Diesel is, and maybe he should just stick with roles like this instead of other things. That would have
The silent performances almost. I
been
think.
super cool with that. It's a really fun cast outside of him. Jennifer Aniston, though, it at first feels weird and seems weird, but obviously the heightened popularity of Friends got her here, but she's actually quite good. But Harry Connick Jr. again,
I mean, speaking of hot cartoon characters,
hot
my-
lead cartoons again. What's happening? What is going on in my list? Yeah, like super hot, and this was also just it's like I said, my top three are much more emotionally driven. It is impossible, I think, not to be incredibly moved by this, not just the relationship between a child and a robot, but the music, and that comes into play with like all of my list. That I'm very easily swayed and moved by a very emotionally triggering score, and this is Michael Kamen's score is wonderful. I love this movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie, and that's Eric's number one. And that's Josh's number three. Erik, you're number three.
My number three, probably my favorite score of any of the things on my list, is How to Train Your Dragon. 2010, I think.
Mhm, yeah.
Not that long ago. It's really not long at all. Again, great voice work. Gerard Butler is really funny here because he's kind of poking fun at himself, I think, a lot. Jay Baruchel is great. But I'm completely in this and invested in this, not just for his relationship with Toothless, but Toothless himself as a character. I'm again easily swayed by like things in my life, my own life. So he reminds me of one of my cats in the best way. So I it's something I rewatch actually quite a bit. And the sequels are really good too. I just think they grow deeper as he grows older. But no, these are all very emotionally driven choices, and this is a very emotional movie. And again, phenomenal score, embarrassingly good.
Oh, that music is so good. And what I also love about Toothless is that he kind of actually has characteristics of both a cat and a dog. So I feel like even if you are more of a dog person, you see some of those things come up too. It's just pet behavior, just in general, and that's what makes him so great.
Yeah, the loyalty of a dog and the independence and feistiness of a cat.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. I love those movies. I think of seeing those on the big screen, those flying sequences, are just so incredible. With that,
one of the few movies that
score.
earned being in 3D.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a great pick, Erik. My number three. Going back to Studio Ghibli, though I'm not going with the Miyazaki film just yet. I'm going to Takahata's masterpiece. That is Grave of the Fireflies. I think that if you've never seen this movie, you don't. I mean, It's not one you're putting on with the whole family, but
No, you don't think so?
well, I mean, if you want the whole family to be emotionally scarred, I mean,
Fuck them kids.
truly one of the most beautiful, haunting. Like my soul hurt watching this movie, and it's just, it's also a movie too. I mean, I know we have Oppenheimer coming up, but it's just the reminder of just the devastation of war, the devastation of that war specifically. And it's about these two, a brother and a sister, who are trying to survive in Japan during World War II. And I mean, there's just moments where they're just fighting to get a couple grains of rice, and it's truly, truly haunting. What we think and we just read in a textbook means nothing when you really see and hear the accounts of stuff from the past and our damage and the world's essential damage to itself. And Takahata was obviously the Miyazaki's equal over at Studio Ghibli, and he has a lot of great films, but this one, to me, I think back on just images. I think of that ending, sort of final shots, the score throughout the film, but really it is about this very heartbreaking relationship between a brother and a sister, and the desperation in a moment of time where you essentially, as the audience, know how this is all going to end, but you're still hopeful that maybe they can make it out, or maybe they can survive. And every single second and of every single frame, you're on the edge of your seat because you never know if it's going to be the last one for them. It's only an hour and a half, but it is truly one of the more devastating films I've ever seen in my life. It is not for the faint of heart. I say that as I've seen it 3 times, and I think every time I'm emotionally wrecked, and I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk and kind of think about like the world and just how much this power of war can have on just small, people in the landscape of a giant, major event in our history. So Grave of the Fireflies, I don't know if anybody else has that on the list, but it's one that I had to put on just because it's one of those where, yes, it's very devastating, but it's an extremely beautiful movie, and you just can't ignore it.
Yep. Yeah, it's not on my list. I've only seen it once, and it was like, it's a great movie, but don't really want to get into that mindset very often. So haven't really felt the need to revisit it.
Hey, it's my birthday, let's watch Grave of the Fireflies or something like that. Yeah, I mean,
but I agree with everything that you said. It's an incredible film, but yeah, it's just not one that I feel inclined to go in for repeat viewings very often.
It's very much, it feels like an antithesis to a lot of the stuff that Studio Ghibli kind of puts out, and really expanding what they can offer as a studio. I think Takahata kind of does that because, there's the wonder, I think, and the innocence, but also the beauty of Miyazaki. But then he deals a lot more existentially and deals a lot more with the heart and the soul a little bit more, I think. I mean, they balance each other out so well. It's kind of insane. That's why the studio is a perfect studio in a lot of ways. So, we're at number 2s. So I've already done my number 2. That was Fantastic Mr. Fox. So Nicole, your number 2 is?
My number 2 is a fairly recent film. And I felt like I inevitably had to have something that was by Cartoon Saloon on here. And of course I went for the beautiful film Wolfwalkers. From the moment I saw this film, I was like, this is pure magic. I think it is beautifully animated. Of course, with me being who I am, I'm literally an English historian. So I really love the story that they're playing out. I think that the way that they portray these different characters is so interesting. I think it's, sort of knowing the history behind, the setting of everything that's going on. I think it's really cool. I think that the voice work is really amazing. I mean, obviously, like, just the whole Lord Protector, like Oliver Cromwell character is so interesting to me. And I love how they deal with that. And I just think that this film is so magical. My sister and I are such big fans of it. We've watched it many, many times. And for Christmas, the year after it came out, my parents got me the like Art of Wolfwalkers book. And the more I find out about it, the more that I love it. So it had to be my number 2.
Fabulous movie.
Good movie.
Yep. No joke, Nicole.
Yeah.
This movie was on my list, but I literally thought, well, Nicole's gonna mention this, so
Yeah.
I don't need to put
Okay.
it on here.
Josh remembers the time period when it came out where I just like would not shut up about this movie.
Hey, I mean, but I was with you. I love that movie too. And like I said, it was very close to making my list, but I figured you would probably mention it. So
Yep.
I thought that was a good bet to make. It's like, well, I'll just leave this off, make room for something else because Nicole is absolutely going to mention this movie.
That was very smart. That was
Yeah.
a smart move on your part.
Yeah,
No,
but I agree.
God, I love it so much. I'm literally, now that we're talking about it, I'm like, wow, I want to go watch it again. Like, it is so great. And it is something that I think is also one of those animated films that is like equally great for children and for adults to watch, which, you know, I do think is like a hard balance to find sometimes. And it's just, I like wish I could just frame every frame of it and like put it up in my house.
Yeah. Should have won the Oscar that year.
It should have won. I will never get over it.
Over Soul, right?
Yep.
Soul one?
Yep.
Yeah, easily. Soul, not good. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't say Soul's not good. I just think Wolfwalkers is better.
Well, you don't have to say it, Josh.
I agree with Josh.
Josh, you're number 2.
Well, my number 2 is I'm going back to what I said earlier about how there was another 2009 movie that I would mention that I really liked, and for me, that is my number 2 film, which is Coraline. I am in love with Coraline. I think that it is so creative and so inventive, and it has that element of darkness and danger to it that I think so many animated movies that have in mind to be aimed at children are so afraid to go to. And I love that sense of danger and darkness within it. And yeah, I just think that the world that is created in that film is just so vibrant and captivating. And I love the story. I love the characters. I think the other mother is like one of the great on-screen villains that we could get. I love that film. I thought it deserved so much better notices when it came out. And and that is a situation where, once again, I think that it deserved the Oscar. In fact, my hot take with Pete Docter is that he's actually not ever made my favorite animated movie of any given year. He's
only made one good movie. So it's
again, I would not quite go that far, but I just think that there's always another animated movie that is better, and it is absolutely the case for me in 2009. I liked Up, but I think Coraline is just so much stronger from a narrative perspective, from a character perspective, from just a design perspective. It's kind of the whole package, and I think it is Selleck's best movie by far, and it's really, really, really good.
Accurate.
Yeah, I love that movie, Josh. I think it's great. You know, Leica is a studio also too.
Yep.
Big fan of them. I mean, obviously like Paranorman and Kubo and the Two Strings, which I love Kubo so much. And I do agree with you. Like, I think it's Selleck's best work. I think it. You know, I obviously I would give it to Fantastic Mr. Fox, but Coraline wouldn't be a bad replacement. The more we can take from Up, the better.
Up should have been a short with the first section of it, and that is a hill I will die on.
Yeah. When your movie peaks at 10 minutes, I don't think that's a good sign for the rest of the film.
Take that out of Best Picture, please.
Completely agree. Sorry, uppers.
Yeah, like it's a fine movie, but
uppers,
we're downers.
Yeah, whatever they want to call themselves. No, it's a flop.
Eric, you're number 2.
I want to give some honorable mention shout outs because I can do whatever I want. And that includes The Prince of Egypt, which shouldn't be as good as it is, with music as good as it is, even though all of the voice actors are like white superstars.
Well, it's 1998. Like,
It's a product of its time.
Very much so.
But it's incredibly compelling. And
oh yeah, I mean, no joke, Eric. Not too long ago, I was just on YouTube and I watched the opening, "Deliver Us." I literally cried.
I'm telling you, it is a pretty stunning film.
Yeah.
And growing up deeply religious, I'm always very pushing against, anything.
Still is.
And still, religious. But I was like, oh my God, if I had seen this as a kid, I'd be like,
he's converting everybody.
My Bible. No, it's just a fucking great movie. But also Osmosis Jones with Chris Rock.
Oh,
one of the coolest concept movies ever. I think Pixar was like, oh wow, we should be doing this.
And Pete Docter saw that movie and was like, I can make Inside Out.
I love Osmosis Jones. Funny
favorite of my youth as well.
Fucking great movie. My number 2 on my emotional damage train is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. No shock here. Ryan was witness to my literal breakdown.
It was
after I saw it. Inconsolably sobbing for 20 minutes.
The whole car ride over to the party. I was like, I'm not with him.
It's just such a brave adaptation. And, we're talking about darker animated films and stories. This certainly is that. I think Cate Blanchett is one of the funniest voice performances as Spazzatura. Just ridiculously good. I think David Bradley's Geppetto completely feels overshadowed by the rest of the cast, and shouldn't be, because his Geppetto is stunning. But yeah, I was whining and moaning on about that night. The whole adoption metaphor for it hit me very different now than any other Pinocchio example and version that I had ever seen at the time, because it was before I had adopted my son. So I just felt very different about this story than I ever had. And Del Toro's telling is so gorgeous and detailed and complex, and I love that was such a passion project for him, and that he had his own personal connection to making it. So I don't know, I connect with it in a way that when I do with a movie, that's it. I can't break it or shake it.
Yeah. I remember that night, because I think we were both very, very surprised how much it worked on both of us. I sobbed a lot during it, and yeah, I mean, I know how much it means to you. It was I think it was just because it's so new, but I love the movie so much that I was and I had a feeling, Eric, you were going to have it on your list.
Yeah, it would feel wrong not to.
Yeah, it would. But it truly is a beautiful film. It's one of my favorite Del Toro films of the last, many couple of years, and it does feel very personal. That's the thing about that movie in particular, is that it feels like him getting back to being like Pan's Labyrinth, where it's something that feels very original, it feels very purposeful, it feels very personal, and him giving us literally his heart, it feels like, and doing it not trying to do it in the Disney way, but doing it in a way that's very different, obviously making it more about focused on Geppetto and this like you said, the adoption angle, but also to Desplat's music in the film that was robbed of nominations last year, and then obviously the song that kills both me and Eric every time we hear it, which is Cha Papa. Every time it's incredible.
It's funny too when a filmmaker makes something that is a passion project or very personal, or has roots in their childhood, and the Iron Giant too.
Yeah.
It can go a few different ways. Either it can be kind of so specific or indulgent that it really does not connect with an audience, or that detail and that care is so there that you're completely enveloped by it. And that's why those are my 1 and 2.
I mean, I think the movie
I feel that
yeah.
from them.
I think the movie also too, it's hearing him talk. I had the fortune of hearing him have a conversation with Carlos Aguilar and being moderated with him and Mark Hutchison, the co-director of the film, and talking about how this was a movie to finally process the grief of losing his father, and then on the eve of the London premiere, his mother passes away, and it's a lot. It is a lot, this movie, for him, and it's something that I think that in future projects that we see from him, it's going to carry it could be a very much a turning point for the rest of his career, which is saying something because he's had such a fantastic career going forward in the stories that he's going to continue.
But at the same time, my personal life and his personal story,
it's different.
This
completely.
film still has to be good.
Yeah.
it can't totally rest at the feet of one or both of those things. It still has to be good.
Yeah. And then I also think of just how funny the movie also is too, and Ewan McGregor's performance in the film is Sebastian J. Cricket is extraordinary, and just the animation, the detail, the years it took to create all those sets, to see a lot of that stuff throughout last year. It's a very, very special movie, and I think over years it's gonna continue to be one that I go back to as well. All right, our number ones. Eric's was the Iron Giant, so Erik, stop talking. And I'm just kidding. You can comment on any of these. Nicole, your number one.
My number one. My number one is actually the first film I ever saw in a movie theater. My mom and my cousin took me to see this, and maybe they made a mistake because if my parents wanted me to be financially successful, they would not have set me on the path to be a historian. But this also caused one of my first historical hyperfixations. Like, did this movie truly make me the historian I am today? Probably. And it also gave me a never-ending love for Meg Ryan, which I carry with me to today. It also introduced me to two of my favorite musical theater composers. The film is Anastasia, of course. I feel like anyone who's ever known me for even 5 minutes would probably be able to guess that. I think I maintain, I think Anastasia is a masterpiece. I think that for it coming out in 1997, the work that is in it is on a different level than you were seeing from a lot of, studios outside of sort of the Asian animation studios and Disney at the time. It sort of is leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of what was going on at the time. It has one of the best soundtracks of any animated film of all time, and I will stand by that. I think that the plot is amazing. Like, the way that they craft the story is great, but the voice cast is insane. Meg Ryan, John Cusack, Kelsey Grammer, Christopher Lloyd in this, and Hank Azaria, Bernadette Peters and Kirsten Dunst being in it, Angela Lansbury. It is a cast of legends. This also, as a child, I was obsessed with Kirsten Dunst between this and the 1994 Little Women. And that has served me well, honestly, growing into adulthood. But yeah, I love this movie. This movie truly is the basis of what I like to see in a romance in a film. It is the basis of what I want from a sort of hero's journey. I am so obsessed with it. I've seen the musical based on it on Broadway. And it is also the number one animated film that I rewatch. This Anastasia is probably responsible for about 35% of my whole personality, so it had to be my number one.
It is a movie I have not seen since I was a child. It's
so funny. It is.
I really need to rewatch it again.
Funny. Honestly, Don Bluth is one of my favorite animated directors. Yeah, it is a movie that I think holds up surprisingly well.
Yeah. It is one I will rewatch soon because I do like Bluth a lot. I think he's a really
She is a Disney princess now.
Yeah. she is. She is. Josh, you're number one.
My number one is a movie that I would also say is my favorite film of the particular year that it came out. And I remember watching this movie for the very first time at my local film festival and just being like so bowled over by how much I was invested in what it was trying to say. And I realized that it seems like not too many people agree with me on this, which is fine, which I just actually makes the movie all that more special to me. And that is Anomalisa.
Oh,
Wow.
I understand that this movie definitely goes into a lot of things that Charlie Kaufman has explored in other works, but I think that it is the best executed here. I really just love this study of somebody who feels so disconnected with everybody around him that literally everybody just looks and sounds the same. And there's one person that comes in that provides something different. And the complicated road that you go to try to have that. And then once you do, how your own personal faults doesn't make you believe that you want it. And I just think it's a really interesting commentary about particularly adult relationships and how difficult that is to maintain as you get older. And the voice acting, there's 3 people in this cast, but they all do an incredible job. Particularly Tom Noonan, who I think has this really, really difficult task of needing to sound the same yet different with every character that he plays. And he does it exceptionally. Like, he is my supporting actor winner for that year as well. I think it's an amazing work. And the same thing for Jennifer Jason Leigh and David Thewlis, also really great. The production design of this movie too, that hotel that they're in, once again, a shout out to great production design for animated movies, should be considered at the Oscars way more frequently than it is right now. And yeah, I think that it is, I do think it's a masterpiece. I love that movie when I first saw it. I think it has so much beautiful commentary to explore, and it is one of my all-time favorites, and it's my number one.
Yeah. I remember watching that movie, and it had one of the more memorable theater going experiences. I took my mom to see it because she really wanted to see it. And then there's that really long sex scene, like 30, 45 minutes in, and it's really awkward when you have that happen. But I will say this: the movie is beautiful. I love Kaufman. I think he's a genius, and I think, especially now that he's directing things too, I think his movies are really fascinating and really interesting. I love that he. It feels like a very risky movie, honestly, to be made now, given that. And I think that his 3 movies, I'm thinking of Ending Things and this one and Synecdoche, New York, are all really, really just well crafted, and they don't answer everything for you, and you have to kind of think about them and explore all of the themes and different avenues that he's kind of trying to construct. And I agree with you, Josh. It almost feels real at times. Certain shots, it almost feels like it's real. It doesn't feel like it's an animated movie because of the trick of what they're with him and Duke Johnson are doing with the camera. And it almost feels like it's like shots are taken out of real life at times, especially like right at the beginning with like the airport and things of that nature. I just remember I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be animated, and it is. And so yeah, I think that movie is it's really good. It's one that I haven't seen since the year it came out. Another one that I would, but I remember really liking it. And I think also his movies, they demand repeat viewings to fully grasp everything that he's trying to say in those too. So, and yeah, I mean, the voice work in it is kind of next level.
Only 3 people. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Only 3 people to make up this entire world, and it completely works.
Yeah. It's also just darkly funny movie.
Well, it's Charlie Kaufman,
but it's Charlie,
of course.
Yeah.
My number one, because Eric already did his, it was Iron Giant. My number one, this is where the master, the man himself, one of the greatest directors of all time, one of the greatest storytellers of all time, gets mentioned for me. This is my mention of Hayao Miyazaki, my favorite Miyazaki film, and that's Kiki's Delivery Service. I think that movie is perfect. There's nothing I would take out of that movie. I mean, from the opening frames of just the witches flying and to just the ending. I think truly it's what I love about Miyazaki so much is for a male director is he fully understands his female characters and gives them as much agency as anybody ever has. And he knows that in this movie, he truly understands the complexities of a coming of age story for this young witch played by Kiki, voiced in the American dub version by Kirsten Dunst. So Kiki doing Kiki, very meta there. But I just think that the movie's really funny and it's also very playful, but it's also very sad and it's very melancholy at times, and it's just perfect mixture of all the things that I love so much about Miyazaki. I mean, I love Totoro and I love Spirited Away. I love Porco Rosso. I mean, Mononoke, as Josh was talking about, all of his movies are so different and they have these vast worlds, but there's just something about Kiki that every time I watch this movie, it just feels there's something so sweet and innocent and yet different about it than all the other films that he does, because it just feels like he's making it for whatever reasons outside of just like a director wanting to make the story. And I can't really, I've watched it 3 or 4 times, 3, 4, 5 times. And every single time it gets me. I'm emotional. And, I've talked to friends of mine in the past, and I've always said that, if I have the chance to have a child, particularly, I would really love to have, a girl. This would be one of the first films I ever show her, because I think that this is just a beautiful, beautiful example of how to tell a female story, and from a male director. He has those sensitivities that I think a lot of male directors could look that do have problems with writing female characters in animated films or in live action films. They could look to Miyazaki as how to do it without making it, we point it out, but he's not, because he treats her as just a human being, another character, a person, a vessel, to tell this beautiful, fun little story about a witch, a young witch who's, trying to independently start a little business, and she has her cute little cat, and it's Phil Hartman, and how can you not love Phil Hartman? And so yeah, it's a perfect damn movie, and I can't wait for Miyazaki's latest film to come out sometime either this year or next year, and it's going to destroy me, because this man knows how to destroy my soul, because it's the innocence that makes then it easy for all of our hard shells to open up and then get to our real emotions. But anyway, that's what I love about Kiki's Delivery Service. I'm not gonna cry. Don't worry, I'm not gonna cry, Eric.
Okay, I haven't watched that
like,
since I
I'm
was
just
a
a
kid.
soul, sir.
I have not watched that since I was a kid, and I need to rewatch it now. Like, you convinced me. So
it's just a damn perfect movie. They don't make many of those.
If you have a daughter, you're gonna name her Kiki as well.
No, I won't.
Kind of feel like you would.
I kind of feel like I'm not. So
Kiki
Kirsten Dunst McQuade.
Kirsten Plemons McQuade. I don't know. No. But no. But it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it.
It is a great movie.
I hope everybody does go and like do deep dives on Miyazaki, as I mean, it's essentially going to be his last movie coming out whenever that movie does hit. So and he always makes every time he makes a movie, it's always different than the last one. So yeah, those are our top 5 non-Disney Pixar animated films. Do you guys have any last second honorable mentions before we wrap this thing up?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I just like jumped on
She's
that.
like,
but
yes.
No, I got some too.
Okay.
Yeah, my 6th place is My Father's Dragon, which is a film that came out last year that I love a lot. It's on Netflix, and I feel like a lot of people miss seeing it, so I take every opportunity I can to plug how much I love it. And it has beautiful voice work in it, particularly from Jacob Tremblay, much better than what he got to do as Flounder. The jump scare from hell.
Shit.
But yeah, it's just really beautiful, and I recommend it to everyone that I can, because it didn't get much fanfare when it came out.
All right. Josh?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing with my honorable mentions is that there's sort of like two camps of them, where there's one of like legitimately great movies that I just couldn't fit into a top five. Like Chicken Run was another one that I really wanted to include. That I love that.
Good movie.
I mean, El Dorado was mentioned. Prince of Egypt was. Rango, I really love. A movie that I don't feel like gets talked about that much, but it's so creative. And once again, Gore Verbinski, an incredible director. But then there's like those movies that they're not great, but I saw them when I was a child, so I have to have some kind of nostalgia for them. And those are movies like We're Back and Rockadoodle and The Page Master, like Little Nemo, movies that, like I said, I know they're not great. I know, but I watched them constantly when I was a child, and I have to give them a shout out at the same time.
I love that. I love all that. Those are great picks. I mean, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish that came out last year was pretty great. That's like phenomenal movie.
It's on my list.
Yeah, it's on your list.
That movie is insane. It has no right to be that good.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I would say if you wanted to, I know that the sort of I don't think it was Disney. Was Who Framed Roger Rabbit Disney? Was that Disney adjacent? I know they had Disney characters in it.
No, they got licenses
through
for all the characters.
Yeah,
but it is Touchstone, so
so it's a Disney movie,
like
but it was like that was the era where Disney wanted to make kind of more adult films. They would move it through Touchstone. Like Nightmare Before Christmas is another one that's like that, which I think is funny that before they're like, I don't know, this might be too dark for kids. Release it through Touchstone, but now it's like Disney's all over that.
Yeah, they're like Hot Topic. We have new shirts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, what? It's true. It's like people's identity.
No, it's funny because that's so true.
It's the truth. But I do think of the Shrek universe, the Puss in Boots sequel, but also Shrek 2 is really great. I think that Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1. And
most people do.
Yeah, the How to Train Your Dragon movie, the first one was mentioned. I think its sequel, How to Train Your Dragon 2, is just equally as phenomenal. Talk about Cate Blanchett coming into the fold. That really adds some layers there as well. Shout out to the Kung Fu Panda series, which I think is a very underrated series. And people, because How to Train Your Dragon has been out, all three of those Kung Fu Panda movies, and I know they're going to make a fourth one. All three of those are great, especially the second one. Second one kind of blew my mind how emotional it was, because the first one I was like, oh, that's fun, but then like the second one just like obliterated me.
Another movie with an adoption narrative.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure.
Yeah.
And so Eric, don't watch that tonight. Then you'll cry.
No, I think to that point, and using an animated movie as the vehicle to tell a story like that for a child to see, I think it's not subversive, but I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. But I think I mentioned Kubo in the two strings or whatever that came out a couple of years ago. That movie I really like that movie, and didn't it get nominated in the visual effects? Right, it got nominated.
Yep,
and it was
animated and visual effects.
I was so happy that it did.
I really thought it was going to kind of break through that wall, but it kind of didn't.
And then Spider-Verse and just a couple other films. But anyway, Eric, you have some. Did you still have some more?
I mean, I already did my honor.
I know you already did yours.
Yeah, I jumped ahead of the
class.
class.
Just wait. You just had to be different.
That's not me.
Yeah. So, all right, that is our top 5 non-Pixar Disney animated films. That's a lot to say all in one sentence. All right, Nicole, can you tell everybody out there where they can find you and your work on the internet?
Yep. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Nicole Ackman 16. You can find my work at AwardsWatch and over at Oscar Central.
Go follow Nicole, all of her stuff. She's back now.
Yeah, I'm back and actually gonna start writing again.
Yeah,
so.
We missed her. She'll be back. Don't worry. She'll be here. She'll be other places. She's not going to be tweeting anymore or sending photos from Europe anymore, making us all jealous. She's good old US of A. Josh Parham, same joke.
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at JR Parham, and you can find my work over on Next Best Picture and AwardsWatch.
Go follow Josh. He's got his comic book ranking somewhere. And
stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that. Actually, that does sound like a piece that I wouldn't mind actually having you write one of these days, just to see what you actually do like out of the genre.
I mean, there are some stuff.
I know there's some you like. I'm just,
it's just not my go-to.
I just tell you, every time I see you do a list and stuff, I'm like, okay, those are, because most of the time we agree on things, Josh. So I'm always curious. Josh is always the mystery, I think, of the podcast, and I love that about him. All right, Erik, where can we find? Well, we know where we can find you and all your stuff on the internet, but why don't you just tell us anyway?
In Barbie Land, obviously. That is where I live now. But yes, at awardswatch.com, and please sign up for our newsletter. I would love it. I'll pay you $1 million if you do. That's you can take that into court.
Take that to the bank.
That will happen. Take it to the bank and cash that rubber check. But yes, please sign up for the newsletter. I would love it. Yay. Go us.
You can find me on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Twitter at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find my work here at awardswatch.com and the playlist and a bunch of other places. And yes, please sign up for the newsletter so you can get those sent to you 6 times a week.
Rude. It's twice
a week. You get but you also get all of our reviews, this podcast, link to the podcast, link to all the news that we've been doing, all of our interviews. You really should sign up for that, because the fact that we're going to have so much more stuff, and it's just great to get all those in one place rather than having to click on so many, links. You can just click on all the links on one email, and Erik personally sees to it what is put on all those. So, you break his heart.
I take all the praise and none of the responsibility. And
all the credit, as he usually does.
If it's bad, it's Ryan's fault.
Exactly. Story of my life, folks. All right. Next week's show, it's a big show. There's gonna be a lot of us. There's gonna be a lot of fighting. It's probably gonna be a long one. So just brace yourself, audience. We're gonna do something new. We are gonna do a tier ranking episode where we are going to officially, as a team, rank the best picture winners of all time.
Oh, there will be tiers.
There will be tiers. I will have it all set up. We'll be doing it together. We're also going to finally settle how many go in each tier, because that's been a debate in the past. So, and we're going to once and for all say, this is where the team stands. These are where these movies belong. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of debating. And so if you need prep for next week, just watch, 95, 96 best picture winners. So there you go. Skip work. So
there's some you can definitely.
Yeah, there's some you could skip, to be fair. Just play them on as you're cleaning your house in the background and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am looking forward to that. I am looking forward to that discussion, because there actually might be one or two there that I'm expecting everybody to say this is terrible, that I might maybe stick up for a little bit, but keep you guessing with that.
Josh Parham is on the show. He brings the chaos that we deserve.
Crash in your top tier.
Oh, fuck no. Don't worry about that.
He's chaotic, not stupid.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about that.
Oh my God.
Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week for that show.